Imagine, in a country as ethnically diverse and multicultural as Canada, but only one ethnic group would account for over 16% of all female murders in the entire country. For Aboriginal women, this brutal scenario is a reality. Between 1969 and 2012, nearly 1,200 Aboriginal women were either murdered or went missing under suspicious circumstances. This makes Aboriginal women the largest contributor to female deaths and disappearances in Canada at 16%. This statistic is even more shocking with the fact that Aboriginal women only take up 4.3% of the female population of Canada. Additionally, Aboriginal women account for 100% of all female homicides in Nunavut, 92% in the Northwest Territories, 55% in Saskatchewan, 56% in Yukon Territory, and 49% in Manitoba, as well as between 205 and 206 deaths occurring in both BC and Alberta separately. The disappearance of Aboriginal women is a major problem facing Canada. To begin, Aboriginal women account for the single largest percentage of missing and murdered women in Canada. Secondly, seemingly all levels of government of Canada have only put in the minimal amount of effort into solving, and more importantly, stopping these crimes from happening. Finally, these tragic murders and disappearances have greatly affected the already damaged Aboriginal community in a negative way. Let's get down to the specifics. Aboriginal women account for over 16% of all female homicides in Canada. Ever since the European colonization of Canada, Aboriginal people have been a minority throughout all the areas in the country, with the exception of the territories. So much so that Aboriginal women now only make up 4.3% of the population. However, they still represent a startling fraction of all female homicides in Canada at 16%. Out of 6,456 women who were murdered in Canada between 1980 and 2012, 1,017 of them were Aboriginal. That means that nearly 1/6 of all Canadian female homicides were committed against Aboriginal women in the past 30 years. The Highway of Tears. On one highway in particular, Highway 16, which is located in central British Columbia, and within the time frame of 1979 to 2011, over 26 women have been murdered or have gone missing. 25 out of 26 of these women belong to an Aboriginal community. What else is shocking is that this number almost doubles to over 40 deaths when nearby highways and connecting roads are accounted for as well. Again, most of these deaths were Aboriginal women hitchhiking or jogging alongside the highway. Despite Canada's peaceful reputation as a country and its recent decline in violent crime rates, it still ranks 5th in the world amongst developed nations for homicide rate per capita behind the US, Norway, Finland, and Belgium. No country in the world strives to obtain a high homicide rate, as it is considered a negative aspect about itself. The same can be said for any, or even one, overrepresented group on their National Homicide Statistics Report. If Canada truly wants an equal country in which no one group is more at risk of murder or disappearing than another, and if the government of Canada wants to create an even stronger international human rights reputation, then this problem of missing an Aboriginal woman needs to be solved rapidly. Lastly, the RCMP has concluded that Aboriginal women are overrepresented in the national homicide rate and have released numerous reports and inquiries on the severity of the subject, as well as future steps on how to solve the problem. Unfortunately, for both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Canadians alike, the government of Canada is doing little to stop these tragic events from happening. The subject has only recently gained widespread attention, largely due to Amnesty International's No More Stolen Sisters campaign, and the federal government has only recently begun to acknowledge the problem. It is understandable that the federal government has many tough problems to face and decisions to make. However, there have been many recent opportunities to take steps towards solving this problem, and little has been accomplished. One such opportunity was the recent National Roundtable on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Girls, held in February of this year, which saw many national Aboriginal organizations, families of the victims of these violent crimes, representatives of the nation's provinces and territories, as well as many federal government representatives, come together to discuss the topic of a national inquiry being launched into solving the roots of the problem. The event, only lasting a single day, led to a firmly negative response from the federal government and the launching of an independent inquiry. Some participants, particularly those who represented the provincial and territorial governments, decided that some action was to be taken, especially in the tightening of provincial security via police enforcement and public awareness campaigns. A report filed by the Legal Strategy Coalition on Violence Against Indigenous Women revealed that all levels of government in Canada, especially the federal level, had collectively ignored the advice of over 700 recommendations from professional and international human rights groups in regards to the investigation of 58 cases of murdered or missing Aboriginal women over the past 2 decades. Unsurprisingly, only around 1/3 of these cases have been solved, and there are still several dozen missing Aboriginal women that have yet to be found, and many more cases of murder that remain unsolved. The United Nations Committee for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women has stated in a follow-up report that Canada has made grave violations in failure to carry out the rights of Aboriginal women and girls by not putting enough effort into solving these cases of homicide and disappearance. In regards to the Highway of Tears in BC, on the 20th of May of this year, 12 emails regarding the issue and possibly containing information about it were allegedly deleted by a ministerial assistant whose orders apparently came from an NDP MP. Many Aboriginal officials in the area claim that these could have contained valuable reports on human rights violations regarding this issue. Lastly, these disappearances and murders are damaging the already weak Aboriginal community. 1,181 murders and disappearances will take their toll on any community, and with these all taking place over the span of a couple of decades, the effect is even more devastating and drawn out. The Aboriginal subnation in Canada has never truly lived up to the standard of living as most other Canadians live in. Reserves are often kept in poor conditions, and a lack of serious financial backing by the government has let the community drift off into depression and poverty. As a result, alcoholism and drug use have bloomed like terrifying flowers in these areas, and are often considered to be one of the main root causes of the attacks against Aboriginal women. Every woman that has been murdered or went missing as a result of this violence was a daughter, a sister, or perhaps even a mother. The sorrow that these attacks leave on the people of this already suffering nation is unbearable. Thousands of friends and family members of the victims of these attacks have joined in the fight to obtain justice for lost loved ones as a result. Canada cannot be an equal or prosperous nation if one of its ethnic groups is suffering from a devastating series of violent attacks. In conclusion, the disappearance and murder of Aboriginal women is a seriously important problem facing Canada, especially in this century. Aboriginal women are shockingly overrepresented on the Canadian Homicide Statistics Report, taking over 16% or 1/6 of all reported cases. The government of Canada is paying a disturbingly small amount of attention to the problem, and recent reports have opened up scandals that reveal its negligence and possible corruption on the issue even further. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, these murders and disappearances have taken a heavy toll on the various Aboriginal communities that they affect. It is my personal dream to see that these issues resolved in my lifetime, and even though it may seem like a madman's desire at the moment, I still have hope that if the right steps are taken at the right time, Canada could one day be a safe haven for all groups. But until then, there is still much work to be done.